My name is Blanche Plummer. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my adult life, I was the dependable one, the fixer, the fallback plan, the person everyone quietly assumed would sacrifice first. I've been with my boyfriend, Ethan Plummer, 34, for 3 years. We're not married yet, but our life together is solid. No kids, by choice. 2 steady careers, shared goals, shared routines, shared respect. We're not wealthy, but we're careful, organized, and financially stable in a way that took effort and discipline to build. Every year since we got together, Ethan and I celebrate our anniversary the same way. We take a trip. Nothing flashy, no luxury resorts or social media flexing, just the 2 of us, somewhere quiet, somewhere that reminds us why we chose each other in the first place. This year it was Colorado, a full week. Hiking trails, small restaurants, no family obligations, no emergencies, no one else's problems to solve. We booked everything 6 months in advance. Flights, cabin, rental car, time off work, non-refundable deposits. It wasn't impulsive, it was intentional. 3 months before the trip, my phone rang during lunch break. It was my younger sister, Natalie, 29. She didn't even say hello before she started crying. Her voice cracked as she told me that her usual babysitter had backed out. Our mom was scheduled for surgery that same week and wouldn't be able to help. And Natalie, single mom to 6-year-old twins and a 4-year-old, had been accepted into a business conference she claimed could change everything. "There are investors there," she said between sobs. "Real opportunities. This isn't just another seminar. It only happens once a year." I listened. I always did. Natalie's life hadn't been easy. Her ex disappeared 2 years ago, leaving her to raise 3 kids alone. I'd stepped in more times than I could count. Financial help, emergency babysitting, last-minute rescues. I'd rearranged my life around her crises so often that it had started to feel expected. But this time was different. I told her the truth, that Ethan and I had already paid for everything, that we'd requested time off months ago, that work had been relentless this year and we desperately needed the break, that this trip mattered to us. The crying stopped. Her tone shifted. "So you're really choosing a vacation over your own family?" The words landed heavy. I tried to stay calm. I suggested alternatives, bringing the kids with her, finding another sitter, rescheduling the conference if possible. Every option was shut down immediately. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," she snapped. "And you're my sister. You're supposed to help." When I didn't immediately give in, she hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next day, my mom called. "Blanche, honey," she sighed dramatically, "I heard about Natalie's situation. I know your trip is important, but family comes first." I explained again that everything was paid for, non-refundable, planned months in advance. "I raised you better than this," she said quietly. "I'm disappointed." Then my dad called. Then my aunt. Then a cousin I barely spoke to. Different voices, same message. Selfish, heartless, unreasonable. It felt coordinated, like a guilt campaign unfolding in real time. The texts followed. Natalie: "The kids keep asking why Aunt Blanche doesn't love them anymore." Mom: "I'm praying you'll do the right thing." Dad: "Your sister is struggling and you're worried about a vacation?" I started losing sleep. My work suffered. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped. The breaking point came when Natalie showed up at my apartment unannounced with all 3 kids in tow. The twins ran inside, bouncing with excitement. "Aunt Blanche, Mommy said we're having a sleepover all week." My chest tightened. Natalie crouched beside them, smiling sweetly. "Tell her how excited you are." I pulled her aside, my voice low and shaking. "You told them I already agreed." She shrugged like it was nothing. "I figured once you saw them, you'd come around. You always do." That sentence cut deeper than any insult, because she was right. I had always come around. When she needed help with rent, when she needed a car repair, when she wanted a night out, when she was overwhelmed and needed a break. I had always adjusted, compromised, sacrificed. But this time, I didn't. I explained gently, but firmly, that I wouldn't be able to watch them, that I never agreed, that the trip was still happening. The 4-year-old started crying. "Mommy said you promised." Natalie didn't correct her. She let the guilt do the work. I stood my ground anyway. She left with the kids, making sure they understood that I was the reason their fun week was canceled. The fallout escalated fast. Relatives I barely knew started messaging me on Facebook about family values. Someone commented under my Instagram photo about how some people only care about themselves. Ethan watched it all unfold, stunned. "This is insane," he said one night after another guilt-soaked phone call. "You've helped her for years. When does it end? When do you get to live your life?" 2 weeks before our trip, Natalie tried a new tactic. She showed up with a PowerPoint presentation. I wish I were joking. She sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, clicking through slides filled with projected income, testimonials from past attendees, and charts outlining how this conference could change her future. The final slide read, "Investment in Natalie's future versus selfish vacation choice." "If this goes well," she said calmly, "I might never need help again. But if I miss it, I'll be stuck struggling forever. Is one vacation really worth keeping your sister in poverty?" Ethan came home halfway through. After Natalie left, he was quiet for a long time. "That was emotional manipulation," he finally said. "Pure and simple." The week of our trip arrived. I blocked most of my family's numbers. Ethan and I drove to Colorado with our phones on airplane mode. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. But I had no idea that this boundary, this one decision, was about to make me the villain in my family's story. Colorado was everything Ethan and I needed. For the first 2 days, my phone stayed on airplane mode. No buzzing, no guilt, no voices in my head telling me I was a terrible sister, daughter, human being. We hiked until our legs ached, ate dinners that stretched for hours, and talked about everything except my family. By the 3rd day, I felt like myself again. That version of me I'd almost forgotten, the one who laughed easily, slept through the night, and didn't feel responsible for everyone else's chaos. On the morning of day 3, curiosity got the better of me. I turned my phone on. 67 missed calls, hundreds of unread messages. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. For a split second, I was sure something terrible had happened. An accident, a medical emergency, something real. My hands were shaking as I opened the messages. It wasn't tragedy. It was Natalie. She'd found a last-minute babysitter, a college student willing to stay full-time for the week, for $20 an hour. The messages came in waves, like emotional whiplash. Day 1, found a sitter. See, I didn't actually need you after all. Day 2, this is costing me a fortune. I don't know how I'm going to afford this. Day 3, you realize you're bankrupting me, right? Day 4, the sitter wants payment up front for the rest of the week. I had to put it on my credit card. Day 5, I hope your vacation was worth destroying my financial future. My parents joined in right on cue. Mom, your sister is going into debt because of your selfishness. Dad, she's trying to better herself and you made it impossible. I showed Ethan the messages. He read them silently, jaw tight. Turn the phone off, he said calmly. We'll deal with this when we get home. We did, and the rest of the trip was incredible. When we got back, I expected another explosion. Another round of lectures, another barrage of guilt. Instead, there was silence, complete silence. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive Facebook posts. At first, it felt peaceful. Then it started to hurt. These were my parents, my sister, people who'd been part of my life forever. I found myself staring at my phone, wondering if I really had crossed some unforgivable line. Ethan kept reminding me, gently but firmly, that I hadn't done anything wrong. They're punishing you because you didn't comply, he said. That doesn't mean you were wrong. 2 months passed. I cracked first. I called my mom. Oh, she said coldly. Now you want to talk to us? I asked how Natalie's conference went. Life-changing, Mom replied. But now she's drowning in debt. She can barely afford groceries. The guilt came rushing back like muscle memory. I almost offered to help, almost said the words out loud. Ethan walked into the room at that exact moment and met my eyes. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. After that call, the silence returned. Until yesterday. I was working from home when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Mom, Dad, and Natalie standing on my porch. Natalie was holding a thick folder. My first instinct was relief. Maybe they were here to apologize. Maybe this was the moment everything got fixed. I opened the door with a cautious smile. "We need to talk," Natalie said, pushing past me into the living room. They sat down without asking. Natalie opened her folder and spread papers across my coffee table. "These are all the babysitting receipts from the conference week," she said crisply. "Professional childcare, 3 kids, 24/7. Total cost, $2,847. I stared at the papers. "Okay, I'm here to collect," she said. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to laugh, to shut this down. They nodded. "She wouldn't have needed professional childcare if you'd helped," Dad said. "These costs are because of you." Mom added, "It's only fair you reimburse her." I felt like the room tilted. "You want me to pay for a babysitter I didn't hire, for kids that aren't mine, during a week I wasn't even in town? You caused this situation," Natalie said flatly. "Your selfishness created these expenses." She slid a document toward me, an invoice. My name was listed as the billing recipient. Service description: emergency childcare due to family abandonment. She'd even included payment plan options. "Given that you could afford a vacation," she added, "money clearly isn't an issue for you." Something inside me went very, very still. I picked up the invoice slowly. "You know what?" I said quietly. "You're right." All 3 of them looked relieved. "I should pay for those babysitting costs." Natalie's face lit up. "Finally," she said. I opened my laptop. "In fact," I continued, fingers moving across the keyboard, "I think we should settle all family debts." I turned the screen toward them. A spreadsheet, years old, detailed. Every loan, every favor, every emergency. Natalie's smile faded. "Let's see," I said calmly. $500 for rent in 2019. $800 car repair in 2020. $1,200 Christmas gifts when you said you couldn't afford any. $300 groceries when you were between jobs." Their expressions shifted, confusion to discomfort. "Oh, and the babysitting," I added. "About 200 hours over 5 years. At the professional rate you paid last week, that's $4,000. Natalie's mouth opened, closed. "The total," I said, scrolling, "comes to $12,847. The room was dead silent. "So," I finished, "if we're settling debts, you can pay me first. Then we'll talk about your invoice." And that's when everything truly changed. The silence in the room felt thick enough to choke on. Natalie was the first to recover. "That's different," she said sharply. "That was you helping family." I nodded slowly. "Exactly." Mom leaned forward, voice strained. "Blanche, this isn't fair. Natalie has 3 kids. She's been struggling." "And I've been helping," I replied calmly, "for years, without invoices, without interest, without threatening reputations." Dad cleared his throat. "You can't keep score with family." I closed my laptop. "I didn't," I said, "until today." That landed. Natalie scoffed. "So you're really going to hold all of that over my head now?" "No," I said. "I'm responding to what you started. You walked into my home with an invoice. You turned family obligations into a transaction." I stood and walked to the front door, opening it wide. "Take your papers and leave." They didn't move. "If you want to keep treating family like a business," I continued evenly, "I'm happy to send you my invoice, with interest and late fees. Otherwise, this conversation is over." Natalie shot to her feet, grabbing her folder. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You can't charge family for helping, but you can charge family for not helping?" I met her eyes. "The difference between us is simple. I helped because I wanted to. You're demanding payment because you feel entitled." Mom tried one last tactic. "We're disappointed in you." I shrugged. "I'm disappointed that you think I owe money for refusing to be exploited." Dad stood stiffly. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said quietly. It is. They left without another word. Natalie paused at the door. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret, I said, is not standing up for myself sooner. After they left, the apartment felt unnaturally quiet. I sat on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen, waiting for the guilt to crash in. It didn't. What I felt instead was clarity. Ethan came home an hour later and found me scrubbing the kitchen like my life depended on it. How bad was it? He asked carefully. I think, I said, exhaling, I just shut down the family ATM. He grinned. I'm proud of you. The fallout didn't take long. Within days, extended family members started calling, confused, cautious, clearly hearing different versions of the story. A week later, Natalie escalated. She tried to organize a family intervention. Mom called, attempting casual. Just a Sunday dinner, she said. Everyone will be there. Your cousin Mark, Uncle Tom. I smelled the trap immediately. I went anyway. 12 relatives sat in the living room, visibly uncomfortable. Natalie stood at the front, holding note cards like she was giving a presentation. We need to address Blanche's refusal to help family, she announced. I almost laughed. She launched into a rehearsed speech about sacrifice, loyalty, and how my selfishness had hurt her children. When she finished, she looked around the room. Does anyone want to respond? I stood. Sure. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. In the past 5 years, I said calmly, I've given Natalie $8,200 in direct financial assistance. I started reading transactions aloud. Rent, car repairs, groceries, Christmas gifts. The room shifted. Should I continue? I asked, because I have 3 more years of this. Uncle Tom cleared his throat. That's generous. I'm not done, I said. Natalie also owes me roughly 200 hours of unpaid childcare. Natalie interrupted. That wasn't work, that was family. Exactly, I replied. Just like you expected me to help family by canceling my anniversary trip. Silence. I scanned the room. How many of you have canceled vacations to watch Natalie's kids? No hands. How many of you have loaned her thousands of dollars? Still nothing. So why am I the villain for saying no once? Natalie's face reddened. You're making me sound like a user. I'm stating facts. I turned toward the door. If anyone here genuinely believes I should pay for a babysitter I didn't hire, for kids that aren't mine, during a week I wasn't even in town, please raise your hand. No one did. I left them sitting in stunned silence. The apologies came later. Cousin Mark laughed when he called. She really thought she had you cornered. 2 days later, Mom called again. Exhausted. After you left, she admitted, Natalie started asking everyone for money. No one helped. Dad apologized quietly. Weeks passed. Then Natalie crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She had her kids call me, crying, saying Mommy told them I didn't love them anymore. I drove to her house immediately. Using your children like that is emotional abuse, I told her at the door. Do it again and I'll document it. I spent an hour with the kids, explaining, gently, that adults sometimes disagree, and love doesn't disappear over money. Natalie didn't say a word, but she never tried that again. For the first time in my life, the guilt didn't control me, and that changed everything. After the incident with the kids, something shifted, not just with Natalie, but with me. For the first time in my life, I stopped bracing myself for the next crisis. I stopped checking my phone with dread. I stopped rehearsing explanations in my head for boundaries I was allowed to have. Ethan and I talked a lot in those weeks about patterns, about how normal it had felt for my needs to come last, about how saying no had been framed as cruelty instead of self-respect. That's when we came across the term that made everything click: financial abuse. Not the dramatic, obvious kind, the quiet kind. The kind disguised as family helping family. The kind where one person's stability becomes everyone else's safety net, and refusing to participate turns you into the villain. We took a financial planning course together. One section focused entirely on boundaries with family members who had poor money management habits. It felt like the instructor was describing my life. We created new rules. Clear, firm, non-negotiable. We would only help with true emergencies, medical crises, job loss, natural disasters. No more rescuing poor planning. No more covering lifestyle choices. No more loans disguised as gifts we were expected to forget. Any help would be a one-time gift, not a recurring obligation. Natalie never qualified. Ironically, 8 months later, her business actually took off. The conference connections paid off. She landed clients, real ones. The money started coming in. Did she pay me back? No. Did she apologize? Of course not. But something interesting happened. She stopped calling. The woman who spent years preaching that family should always come first suddenly had no time for family dinners. She skipped birthdays, missed holidays, posted Instagram stories from resorts while her kids spent Christmas morning asking where mommy was. That was when my parents finally saw it. We were sitting together watching the kids open presents when Dad sighed quietly. I think we owe you another apology. Mom nodded. We enabled her, and you paid the price. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sad. Sad that it took this long. Sad that love had been confused with obligation for so many years. 1 year later, my life looks completely different. Natalie and I are cordial, but distant. Cards on birthdays, polite conversation at major events, no emergencies, no invoices, no emotional ambushes. My parents treat me differently now. I'm no longer the automatic solution. I'm not the first call when something goes wrong. I'm just Blanche, the daughter, the sister, the person with her own life, and that's enough. Ethan and I celebrated our 4th anniversary with a 3-week trip to Japan. We told no one until we got back. No guilt, no drama, no demands. We've paid off our mortgage early. We're investing. We're talking about buying a vacation home someday. None of that would have been possible if I'd stayed the family ATM. The hardest lesson I learned was this. Saying no to unreasonable demands isn't cruel. It's necessary. Boundaries aren't walls. They're gates. They let love in, but keep entitlement out. Natalie learned how to run a successful business once she couldn't rely on me to fund her life. Funny how that works.